We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. It's our final segment this morning. News Channel 5 Chief Meteorologist Lelan Statom is with us. We're streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com, and the number on the screen is 737-7587. Talking and showing you video in the very latest as we track Hurricane Ian making the way toward the Florida Gulf Coast. Will hit later today, and it is right on the edge. Leland's checking on this, right on the edge of being a Category 5, which is 157 miles per hour wind speeds.
Yes. So right now winds are at 155 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's a Category 5 at 157. So it's borderline Category 5. Hurricane hunters have been in this morning, and one of the best ways that we can get information is from people in these aircrafts. You've got them on the from NOAA. You have them from one of the Army bases. They go in, they look at what's going on. They fly around to a cross section. They drop a radio zone so we can get temperatures from top to bottom. And based on what they were doing this morning, found that it had strengthened to the speed it's at right now.
I know Donnie Cox used to work here.
Yeah, Donnie, who's now Chief Meteorologist at a station in North Carolina.
Okay, well, I remember, didn't he go on
one of those? He did do one of those,
hurricane
yes.
Flying into the eye. I mean, I know you would love to do it. I don't know if you ever have.
You know,
maybe you wouldn't love to do it.
It's one of those, I've thought about putting my name in the hat for it, then I go back and forth, and you got to be ready for the bumpy ride for that.
A lot of turbulence.
A lot of turbulence, yes.
When they get in there, though, it's just always amazing, and you've probably seen some of the images where they get to the middle and so serene in the eye.
Yes.
And it's calm. And actually, when the eye is right above you and you're on the ground, it's very serene. It's just once that peripheral wind hits you that you're in big trouble. But flying in, okay, so they've flown in and seen that. You get a sense of it. But remind folks again, just the physics of a hurricane and why what we're talking about here has been driven as it made its way into the Gulf Coast, or into the Gulf waters. The warmth of the water.
Yeah, because I'm looking at a map right now trying to find water temps.
Okay, because wasn't it like in the 80s or something?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Sarasota is 89 right now. Just outside of Lido Key, Florida is at 89 at this point. Sometimes it can be as high as 92.
It's like a hot tub.
Yeah, so most of what I'm seeing is around 89 to 90 degrees. And so this one said ideal for swimming, but it's also unfortunate because these storms feed off of warm water.
Why is it? What is it? Is it because it's evaporating or what?
Well, it's warm water that feeds any of these storms.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's why we don't get tropical storms here. That's why we don't get hurricanes here, is because we're landlocked and it's not what feeds these storms.
Right.
So it is the very warm water that feeds these things to begin with, and the Gulf has really been untouched this year. Think about the fact that we've had a couple of other storms. The month of August was the first time in 25 years we didn't have a named storm.
When does the storm season start typically?
Well, the official on the date is from June 1 until November 30th. But with climate change activity, they've looked at debating on whether or not to start it in the middle of May and maybe extended a little bit into December, because there are still storms that can happen at that point.
But what you're saying is how unusual it was, knowing that there was no storm, a named storm in August.
No named storm in the Atlantic Basin for the first time in 25 years. And all of a sudden you get these storms popping, although say September is peak hurricane month. September 13th is that peak day, so-called day, for hurricane activity. But nothing in the Gulf of Mexico, so there's nothing that has churned that water. There's nothing that has made that water cooler from tropical activity. So it's just this bath water that's just sitting there untapped.
Okay, interesting. So, and I don't know if we've checked this out, and that's real curious to me. So once Ian makes its way through, I don't know if we checked, are there some other potential hurricanes brewing out?
Short answer, yes.
There now. There are. And
yes,
but because of Ian, though, is that cooling the Gulf waters?
It will help. Okay. All right, so it will be cooler, but it's still summertime, and so it will help. Part of it depends upon, is it following the exact same track, and is the water a little cooler thanks to what just happened, or is it on a slightly different track? And so it's in an area where maybe Ian didn't touch. But I will tell you this, Hurricane Center is watching another storm that is east of the Leeward Islands right now that they say has an 80% chance of development. Early to say where it's going to track, but they say that storm storm system within the next day or two has an 80% chance of development.
Think about that. As much devastation as Ian may end up bringing, and gosh, I hope not, but I think it's going to be bad. Another storm coming another week or so later than that. And by the way, then the tracking it's tricky.
Yeah.
They change all of a sudden. Is that completely dictated pretty much by the winds? I mean, what is it that determines the direction that a hurricane goes?
It's global winds, which determining what is going on. But you look at something 5 days out and you think the winds are going to do this or they're going to do that. Think of it like a snowstorm. Okay. On a much different scale, but similar. Yeah. When we track a snowstorm here, we are tracking it and make our forecast predictions based on the track. But if it tracks just to the south a little bit or just to the north a little bit, that changes the forecast a bit. So similar down here. We are tracking what this thing is going to do, but still massaging it as new data comes in. And as you get closer to the storm, you can fine tune it even more so. But yeah, it's the global wind support that's dictating where this thing is going.
Yeah, and it's a different phenomenon as a tornado that moves so much quicker. But we all know this, and we're told this when we have to go out and cover it. You don't get too close into any of these zones because you don't know. A tornado can be going that way and all of a sudden just decide to come right toward you. And it moves fast. In this case, okay, you can chart the shifting maybe of where Ian goes. And it moving only at 10 miles an hour, that gives you a chance maybe to say, okay, it just shifted, and instead of hitting, you know, Tampa, it's maybe going to make its way further south. Or, you know, and you can see that happening, and maybe you have time to react. I don't know.
Have time to react, but the other thing, too, is a slight shift depends can change where the strongest part of the storm is. So
what is the strongest part of the storm?
It is the front right quadrant. That is the strongest part of the storm. And so as it's making its way inland, and if you did a cross section in the path that it's moving, it's that top right corner that's the strongest. So a little bit shifter there changes where the strongest part of the storm is located.
Okay, so when you know that, then you have to take that into account with a storm this big.
You have to take that into account with a storm this big, and you also have to take into account that we may think storm is going to hit Tampa, and right before landfall, it could still make a shift eastward, or in that case, southward or to the north just a little bit.
So Fort Myers or something.
Until the thing is on land, nothing is off guard.
And I don't know if we can call up another image yet again of just showing the satellite shot of the storm with the lightning and the whole, just to give an idea of the size of this. And when you understand what the Gulf of Mexico is, it's big. Yeah. And it covers it. So we're talking, this hurricane is, do you have a guesstimate on how many miles across? There we go. Look at that.
I'm not seeing the stats here, but definitely a couple of 100 miles across. But also keep in mind that it's in the Gulf of Mexico, but there's rain on the east coast of Florida. Okay. And so once this thing is over Florida, it could be covering really pretty much most of the sunshine state for today, tonight, and for tomorrow.
All right. So just to recap, as we'll be wrapping up the program here with you in just a moment or two, I already said Disneyland's closed, or Disney World is closed today and tomorrow. Flights down south, if you were planning on flying anywhere down south to Florida, forget it. Yeah, there's nothing going there. Evacuations, everyone's coming this way. No one's really going down that way except for some of our news crews. Any other advice moving forward? Again, it's going to get, you're going to be monitoring this throughout the day.
Going to be monitoring this for folks who are headed to South Florida and we're planning to leave Saturday for family vacation. You may want to look at having a backup plan, since you're going to have to make a decision Thursday or Friday on what you can and can't do in Florida. If you're headed to, let's say, Jacksonville, if you're headed to the Panhandle, sit on the reservation and see what's happening after the fact. Stay in contact with the hotel that you've got your reservations with to see what they are doing and what's happening around them, to see if there's damage that will prevent you from going down.
Interesting. I know your son especially is a big fan of cruises, and you've been on a few cruises, and I have. Just as we wrap things up, I'm curious. The cruise ships that are in these areas, whether they're in the Gulf or over there on the Atlantic, when they see these things come, they get off to safe harbor if they're out to sea already, right? They just find a way to, we're going to divert our course. We're not stopping at Castaway Cay or whatever it's called.
No, they will do what they need to do to protect the property of those ships, to protect the property and the lives of people on those ships. But also keep this in mind, too. like airlines, a lot of people don't realize this, but airlines have their team of meteorologists. Same with a cruise ship. Cruise ship have their own team of meteorologists, so while they are in contact with a hurricane center, they have their own forecast operation so they can stay on top and get firsthand information from people on their payroll so they know what to do. It's like airlines. Again, airlines, FedEx, UPS, they have their own team of meteorologists so that they can do what they need to do on a quicker time frame to keep their property safe and to keep the lives of the people safe as well.
But you are the people's meteorologist.
Oh, you know, I do my best. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming over with us. This was I learned a lot from you this morning, but just a scary but fascinating situation developing here, and I sure hope people stay safe. But thanks again, Lelan, for coming on.
Good to be with you.
And we'll maybe touch bases with you again tomorrow. Gosh, by then we'll have a better handle on what kind of damage is going to be done.
Yeah, so stay with us, and our friends at the CBS have teamed with the Weather Channel, so they'll have updates throughout the day, and then later this evening, Bree will stay on top of what's happening as well.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Take a break. Programming note about tomorrow right after this. Stay with us.